Discrimination towards the LGBTQ+ community has hindered access to healthcare and led to misperceptions.
The message has always been that, like, gay people are dangerous to children. You know, that gay people shouldn't raise children. That, like, we are the opposite of family. We destroy family. When it became clear that Lucas and Haley, my biological niece and nephew, were gonna need a home, it was pretty clear that we were gonna be the only people that could take them, or they would need to go into foster care. And so, you know, we had a discussion, and Trystan was, like, very supportive. Was like, yes, let's do this. Let's take them.
Concentrate means you work very hard.
It never occurred to me until I met Biff. I started thinking, you know, I would love to have a family with him, and seeing him with kids, I was just like, that door could open for us. We could have a physical manifestation of this, you know, profound and true experience of love we have for each other.
Many people like me don't ever have the opportunity to have a kid that is biologically connected to them, either because the reproductive systems don't match up or they don't have the resources.
And in many cases, I think people don't even imagine. That was one thing that people would always say is like, 2 men can't make a baby. And so I'm sort of like, watch us.
How do 2 men make a baby?
Hormone treatment can suppress the reproductive system. So for example, a transgender man who is taking testosterone will experience a cessation of menses, so periods will stop coming, and that's actually an intended consequence of the treatment. But in addition, it will suppress the ovaries so that he is no longer ovulating. When they come off of testosterone, there are reports that the menses will return.
Testosterone really acts to the ovulatory system the same way that any hormonal birth control that stops ovulation and menstruation impacts the system. It just hits pause on the sort of egg maturing factory. And when you go off of testosterone, as I did, it takes a few months, and then the egg maturing factory kicks back into gear and you ovulate and menstruate just as you had before.
There have been reports of pregnancies, but what we don't know is if a person has been on testosterone for a long period of time, is that return of ovarian function going to actually occur?
If you want to see the belly, I'm actually wearing a whole...
Trystan had been taking testosterone for 12 years before trying to get pregnant. After experiencing a miscarriage, he soon became pregnant with Leo.
Gigantic giant. And Leo looks so much like you that people just assume that I wasn't involved at all.
They do assume that we had a surrogate and just used my sperm for that. We did have a surrogate. We did use my sperm.
It was me. I was my own surrogate. How do you navigate pregnancy as a transgender man? Maybe you felt conflicted about or even negative about having breasts. But now, that's being used to nourish a human. Maybe you felt conflicted about having a uterus to begin with. Now it's being used to grow a person. You're building a family.
Trystan felt grateful that he was able to become pregnant and give birth. But for patients about to transition, there are steps they can take to preserve their fertility.
In patients who are undergoing gender-affirming therapy, I think it's important that they are presented with the option to either freeze eggs or freeze sperm before they start those treatments.
Fertility preservation is invasive, it is very expensive, and it takes a long time. It can take weeks or even months, depending on how successful the first retrieval is. And a majority of trans adults who say they wish they'd preserved their fertility, they said that they were not counseled, they didn't think about it.
Counseling the younger group about fertility preservation before gender-affirming therapy is particularly challenging because these are teenagers, and many times they're so distraught by their gender dysphoria that they're really eager to start their gender-affirming treatments.
Honestly, if you had told me at age 22, you know, you have to choose between transitioning and ever having a biological child, it would not have taken me 1 second to make that decision. I would have chosen transition. I thought I was choosing transition over ever having a family, ever falling in love, ever having community support, ever getting married.
What the research has shown is that at least 50% of transgender men and women do wish to have children or have a family in the future.
Okay, Leo.
Change comes from moving into the place that's hard and looking for the light. Often when you say, like, well, why don't you just adopt? It's rooted in this belief that we shouldn't have access to the same things as everyone else. I don't want to be like men who are not transgender. I feel like what I am is unique, it's powerful, it's a gift. If I'd been assigned male at birth, I never would have had Leo. So when I look at me pregnant, you know, I'm just one of the many men who happen to be unique in that we can create life. And I think that's pretty cool.